What's going on, guys? BMP back with another bad movie review. This week, our fifth and final week in sequel month, Six-Headed Shark Attack.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so right off the bat, I'm just gonna try to give the premise of the movie, but stay with me because it's a bit of a cast here. It's a bit of an ensemble. So we mostly follow William, who owns this couples resort. Not a resort, more of like a retreat, right? And it's there to like help the couple. Like, if you ever seen Couple Retreat, it's pretty much like that, but with sharks. And he owns this resort, this retreat, and you find out that he's newly divorced from his wife, and he's pretty heartbroken over it. The rest of the cast is made up of couples that are there for his course. So we have Mary and her husband James. Mary is very gung-ho about this retreat, but James thinks it's a load of crap right off the bat. We have Duke and his wife Daphne. Daphne says he's a car salesman, but as you see in a little bit of the movie, it gets pretty hectic with him. Almost like either he's secretly an assassin or he's just out of his mind. We have Jake and Sarah, who are labeled as hippies. Their words, not mine. The movie called them hippies. And they are all about chi and, you know, your inner spirit and your soul. We have Kip and Angie. We actually don't really find out what they do, but we do know at one point in the movie they are most likely one of the couples that struggles the most, because later on in the movie, just to quickly jump ahead, Angie mentions like splitting up after this is all over. Like, if we survive this, I want to split up. And we'll get into that later because there is a quick 180 on that whole situation, but we'll get there.
Might I add, Kip is the MVP of this movie. He's the guy.
Yeah, and I think that's most of the cast right there. Oh, and William's wife, Suzanne. We meet her for a brief moment in the beginning, and then she comes back towards the end. And I guess her new husband or boyfriend, Zach. That's literally everyone in this movie. Two people I didn't mention in the cast were Brad and Rebecca, and only because they died within the first 60 seconds of the movie. But they worked with William in the retreat, and the shark right off the bat kills them. But before we even get past that, the movie opens in 1984, and that's when we first see this six-headed shark. It's not the same origin story as the other sharks we've seen in the previous movies, and Five-Head Shark didn't even have an origin to it. But this one definitely comes from some type of government experiment, or it's an experiment done on sharks, and we find out later on exactly what it is. So Brad and Rebecca die right off the bat, and it's not long before everyone starts turning against William, blaming him for them getting stranded with this shark. Then a storm starts rolling in. They blame him for the storm.
They blamed him for everything. Like, nothing was his fault, but yet they blamed him anyway.
Yeah, I mean, they really blame William. I felt so bad. He got such a raw deal in this movie. Once they find out that this shark does exist, it's a six-headed shark, Duke volunteers and says, I'll help you kill it. And this is when we start seeing his complete character shift. You know, at first he was just this very, like, solemn, low-tone character. And then all of a sudden, he's this, like outspoken, very almost poetic with his language kind of deal. It got really strange. And it was almost like I said, either he was secretly an assassin, like car salesman is another word for, like, you know, when you say, like, I'm a mechanic, I fix things, like you're a fixer, or he's just out of his mind.
Who's your daddy? I'm the man.
He makes a boomstick, and him and William are standing at the shore. He cuts his own hand open to use the blood to draw in the shark. It works. He uses the boomstick on one of the heads. And this is the first glimpse we see of the shark's beginning of regeneration. Once a head is taken out, the head next to it bites it and tears it off, leaving room for a new head to grow eventually. What we get next is one of the most ridiculous death scenes I have ever seen in one of these movies. And that's saying a lot coming from Asylum. And I'm just going to leave it here for you guys to decide for yourselves. That is the death that Duke suffered. That should be up for an award on its own.
Then, right after that scene, everybody else is on the boat. So William is like, shit, let me go get to them. So what does he do? You know, there's a six-headed shark right by you, but let me go swim to the boat and not give a shit anyway.
Yeah, within the first half of this movie, he took so many trips back and forth from the shore to the boat, from the shore to that other military floating thing that they were talking about. So many laps. Not once did he ever get attacked by the shark. William gets everyone off the boat and back onto the shore because it's not safe. They all make it back to shore, and now they're deciding their next move. William says they should go to the Lighthouse because it's an old, like, World War I or World War II bunker. But then Jake, he says that there's an old military outpost or government outpost where they did experiments on animals. That it was almost like Plum Island in New York, where they just do all these radical experiments on animals, and he wanted to go check it out for himself. So when they have to decide where to go, that's what he says to do. And it's a floating station. And, you know, they said no matter what happens, it will rise with the water. Because apart from the shark, now there's a massive, massive storm coming. And his wife is a meteorologist, and she said how it could cause cyclones and massive thunderstorms. Like, pretty much that whole island is going to be destroyed once that storm hits. So once he starts talking up this floating outpost that will rise with the water no matter what level it is, they all just decide to go with him. William is a little hesitant at first, but because the whole group goes, he has no choice. He goes as well. Once we get to this outpost, it turns out to be the floating thing that we saw in 1984 when the shark first attacked. And it's really nothing. It's old, shabby tents on top of these flotations that it's not going to help them survive at all.
Not through a storm, that's for sure.
Yeah, and they keep saying, like, it'll rise with the waters. Yeah, I'm sure it will. That doesn't mean you're going to be on it. And that's when Jake has this breakdown, and he realizes that all these conspiracy theories that he's read and everything on the dark net that he read was all bullshit.
The dark net is a bunch of hocus pocus. It's bogus, hocus, nogus. There's no such thing as it. It's been here for 40 years. It'll rise with us. Hocus pocus.
You know, he apologizes to the group, and then his wife is the one to talk him back up. And so, like, no, like, we're still going to be safe. Don't worry. And, you know, this movie was a little bit more lighthearted than the other shark attack movies because, you know, they knew what they were doing. They knew what they wanted to be. With Jake and Sarah, they were comedic relief. You know, they were very dramatic and over the top. And even Kip makes a comment about that, and this is why I called them hippies, because he said,
Y'all need to calm down. I thought hippies were calm people.
Then a rogue wave hits and knocks Jake right into the water. There's this little square in the middle of that floating thing. And Sarah goes into, like, the biggest over dramatic scene I have ever seen. And then, Chris, you had a point right after that.
Yeah, it didn't really make much sense to me. So he falls into the square, and then this, like, shelving unit falls on top of the square. So he can't really get back up on his own. Rather than just, because the thing is, like, this big, rather than just swim underneath and come out the other side, he waits, almost drowns, and pops his head back up so somebody else can help him. He could have easily just swam around it, but chose to almost die.
So he does come back up from the square, like Chris was saying, and they do rescue him out of it. And that's when him and Sarah have this moment where, you know, they both apologize to each other. It's this nice moment for them to kind of, you know, get more stability in their relationship. And I really thought that was the point of all these different scenarios, was that through this trauma of the shark and through all these events, like, they would all find ways to come out stronger on the other side. Well, nope, because a second later, the shark not only takes Sarah into the water, but bites Jake right in the face and drags him in as well. At the same time, they're dead. That's it. Double death. Boom, right there.
Bye.
Everyone decides to get off this crappy floating thing and back onto shore. And as they do, William is staying behind to buy time for them to go. So he's stabbing the shark. And when everyone gets back on shore, this is when I mentioned earlier, Angie stopped Kip and said, when this is all over, I want to split up. And that was kind of a shocking moment for me because I feel like it came out of nowhere almost. Because you would think everyone's, running around with the shark, tensions are high, you want to stick close to the people you love and people you know. And she's like, listen, if we get out of this, I'm dipping. But within like 3 lines of dialogue, it completely changes because Kip says,
Doesn't mean anything, right?
and she says,
It does. If you want it to mean something.
and he says,
It does.
so then they end up making up and they don't want to split up. But as they go to kiss, we get one of the most outrageous things I've ever seen in any form of media. And Matt, I'm going to let you take it away.
It literally became a walking land shark, which used its other 4 heads and just like poltergeist itself onto the freaking beach.
When we saw 5-headed shark attack and the 5th head ended up coming from the tail, I thought that was different. This is different, but I don't know if in a good way. So now that this shark knows how to walk on land, there's nowhere safe for these people to go. So now that that floating outpost didn't work out, now they decide to go to the lighthouse. But like I said, the thing is now walking on land. Kip and Angie are still there. And this actually pissed me off about them because you see there's plenty of space between them. There's plenty of time for them to run. But they just stand there and stare at it walking towards them. And guess what happens? Boom! Double death. Another double death. Kip and Angie both get eaten. They finally make it to the lighthouse. And now, because I know there's a lot of characters to keep up with, the remaining characters are William, Mary, James, and Daphne. And now, on the other side of the island, Suzanne and her new boyfriend, husband, whatever, Zach, are still in the boat. And while they were on the floating outpost, William sent out an SOS on the old radio, and Suzanne ended up picking up the signal. So she gets in contact with William, and he explains, don't come after me here, go to the lighthouse. Let's all rendezvous at the lighthouse. So that makes sense. That's fine. When they get to the lighthouse, Daphne is in worse shape than ever. She's starting to talk to Duke, who's obviously not there anymore. She's losing her mind. And while everyone else is trying to prepare to either battle the shark or make their way to the boat once it gets there, she walks out onto the rocks, screams, puts her hands up, and lets the shark take her. And it does. As Suzanne and Zach's boat is getting closer, everyone notices that the shark is now circling their boat. And it's not circling their boat like Jaws would circle a boat. It's not meant for dramatic tension and suspense. It creates a whirlpool. And it creates this whirlpool so badly that it topples the boat enough, I'd say. And this got a little random for me. Like, it seemed like I couldn't keep up with what was actually happening because Zach and Suzanne both fall in the water and the shark grabs a body. And for a second I said, like, who just died? And I think we all had that kind of idea, like, which one was it that just died? Turns out Zach was killed. But it doesn't really matter because 5 seconds later, Suzanne's trying to swim to the shore and she gets killed too. And that surprised me because I thought that they were really setting up that Suzanne and William would kind of, work things out in the end. But no, she gets killed too. So all that's left is William, James, and Mary. One thing I didn't mention throughout the movie was that James felt like William and Mary were secretly doing something behind his back. And no matter what was happening in the movie, Mary and William were always caught together. Not doing anything, just being together in the same room, going after the same equipment to use. And James kept seeing this and thinking in his own head that something was going on. By the time we get to the lighthouse and they're the only 3 left alive, he's become so paranoid with it that he truly believes that something's going on and he's threatening to kill William over it. Their plan is to take these canisters that would explode if something punctured them and trap set a trap for the shark. And once it walks over them, James is going to shoot it. Of course, this doesn't work out. He ends up aiming at William instead, but Mary saves William's life. James shoots one of the heads. The shark next to it rips it off, but instead of tossing it to the side like it did the other 2 times in this movie, it chucks it through the air, crashes it into the top of the lighthouse, and kills James.
This movie is up there for having almost as wacky deaths as Zombies 2.
Yeah, I mean, there were some crazy, ridiculous deaths in this movie. Ridiculous. And for all the wrong reasons. Now that William and Mary are the only 2 left alive, they swim over to Suzanne and Zach's boat now that it's abandoned. And they try to devise a plan to get the shark to come to them. So when the shark does come to them, it breaks through the wall of the hull. And William is there to attack it, and now all the canisters that they were carrying around since the lighthouse are all open. The gas is leaking out, and William fires a flare. But for some reason, it doesn't actually go off, which means the canisters don't explode. So now, again, William and Mary go back to shore. It was just a lot of back and forth.
Yeah.
You know, with between going to the boat, coming back, going to the other boat, coming back, going to the floating outpost, coming back. It was a lot. So they end up back on shore, and now the shark also is now walking again on shore, but the canisters are caught in a net that's caught on the makeshift spear they made that's embedded in one of the shark's heads. As it walks towards them, it gets caught on a rock, and the canisters get caught in between the rocks, so it can't move. Aside from a really random moment of losing a flare and having this dramatic thing to get it back because it's in front of the shark, which seemed completely useless, to be honest, William loads up another flare, shoots at the canisters, and blows up the whole 6-headed shark. And just like that, William and Mary are the only 2 survivors. And weirdly enough, even though James was wrong the whole time about something going on with them, the movie does kind of hint that they now have feelings for each other, or they're gonna, link up after this. So it's like, was James right or wrong? I'm not too sure.
And then we had that classic move, fade to black.
And that's the movie. And I know I kind of went at a fast pace, but that's literally how it went. Like, everything in this movie was just death, 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 death. There wasn't much more to pick apart about these scenes, except for all the people that died. It was like a laundry list of deaths in this movie. But let's get on to our final grades. Chris, we'll start with you.
I'm very torn between what to give it. I think I'm going to give it a B. The lowest B I can give it, but a B.
Okay, Matt?
Well, I'm going to go dig down in that big old barrel of ours and give it an F.
Ouch.
This movie was crap. I enjoyed 5-Headed Shark way more.
I'm going to shock the world and give this movie an A. And I purposely didn't tell anyone my grade because I wanted to see those kinds of reactions. But yes, I am giving this movie an A. And I'm going to tell you why. Okay? Even though the shark ending up walking on water was way too much for me, I appreciated what this movie did. First of all, I think William was a very, very good character. And I liked the way he was portrayed. And even like when his ex-wife was killed, he had a really good devastation moment. Like, he got emotional and it worked. It wasn't awkward. It wasn't weird. It didn't feel uncomfortable or dumb. It worked. Like, that was like a grade A performance of a reaction to that. And I appreciated that. Another thing I appreciated in this movie was it wasn't so linear with the shark. They added in other elements. Like the storm that was coming. And even though the storm never actually hit the way that they said it was, to say that the whole island was going to go under. We never even got so much as rain. But just the fact of saying that, we have this shark to deal with, but we also have this massive storm to deal with. And then on top of all of that, James' paranoia of his wife having an affair with William and having it trickle through the movie to the point where it builds to this climactic moment of him being in the lighthouse and actually trying to shoot him. Like, that was like a subplot that you normally don't see in these kinds of movies. So I appreciated them having a subplot like that in this movie. Like, there was more to watch in this movie than any other shark attack I've seen. There were different elements that we were able to see and more, layers of story that we got that I never expected to see in these kinds of movies. So I appreciated that. And I give this movie an A. I disappointed everyone here today.
Very, very much.
I have no words for you.
So guys, that's our review on Six-Headed Shark Attack, and that officially wraps up sequel month. We did it. But now we're going right from sequel month into Halloween month. It's October next week. And we have 4 beautiful movies to check out for you guys. So tune in next week when we tackle Alien Predator. No, not that one. This one. Yep, that's the one. As always, guys, like this video if you enjoyed what we had to say. Comment down below what you thought of the movie or suggestions of movies you want us to check out. Share this video with your friends and subscribe to catch more of these reviews every week. But until then, I'm Anthony.
Matt?
Chris.
And we see you next time. Later.